Please subscribe, like and share this content. It means a lot to us. Thank you in advance.
To U.S. Code Chapter 5, Library of Congress. To U.S. Code Paragraph 173, Establishment of Center for the Book. There is hereby established in the Library of Congress a Center for the Book. The center shall be under the direction of the Librarian of Congress. To U.S. Code Paragraph 174, Function of Center for the Book. The librarian through the center shall stimulate public interest and research in the role of the book in the diffusion of knowledge through such activities as a visiting scholar program accompanied by lectures, exhibits, publications, and any other related activities. To U.S. Code Paragraph 175, Administrative Provisions. The Librarian of Congress, in carrying out the center's functions, is authorized to 1. Prescribe such regulations as he deems necessary, 2. Receive money and other property donated, bequeathed, or devised for the purposes of the center, and to use, sell, or otherwise dispose of such property for the purposes of carrying out the center's functions, without reference to federal disposal statutes, and 3. Accept and utilize the services of voluntary and non-compensated personnel and reimburse them for travel expenses, including per diem, as authorized by Section 5703 of Title V. To U.S. Code Paragraph 176, Mass Book Deacidification Facility, Operation by Librarian of Congress. Notwithstanding any other provision of law, the Librarian of Congress shall equip, furnish, operate, and maintain the Library of Congress Mass Book Deacidification Facility. To U.S. Code Paragraph 177, Poet Laureate Consultant in Poetry. A. Recognition. The Congress recognizes that the consultant in poetry to the Library of Congress has for some time occupied a position of prominence in the life of the nation, has spoken effectively for literary causes, and has occasionally performed duties and functions sometimes associated with the position of Poet Laureate in other nations and societies. Individuals are appointed to the position of consultant in poetry by the Librarian of Congress for 1 or 2 year terms solely on the basis of literary merit, and are compensated from endowment funds administered by the Library of Congress Trust Fund Board. The Congress further recognizes his position is equivalent to that of Poet Laureate of the United States. B. Position established. 1. There is established in the Library of Congress the position of Poet Laureate Consultant in Poetry. The Poet Laureate Consultant in Poetry shall be appointed by the Librarian of Congress pursuant to the same procedures of appointment as established on December 20, 1985, for the consultant in poetry to the Library of Congress. 2. Each department and office of the federal government is encouraged to make use of the services of the Poet Laureate Consultant in Poetry for ceremonial and other occasions of celebration under such procedures as the Librarian of Congress shall approve, designed to assure that participation under this paragraph does not impair the continuation of the work of the individual chosen to fill the position of Poet Laureate Consultant in Poetry. C. Poetry Program. 1. The chairperson of the National Endowment for the Arts, with the advice of the National Council on the Arts, shall annually sponsor a program at which the Poet Laureate Consultant in Poetry will present a major work or the work of other distinguished poets. 2. There are authorized to be appropriated to the National Endowment for the Arts $10,000 for the fiscal year 1987 and for each succeeding fiscal year ending prior to October 1, 1990, for the purpose of carrying out this subsection. To U.S. Code Paragraph 179 Leaders, National Film Registry of Library of Congress. The Librarian of Congress, hereafter in sections 179 leaders to 179W of this title referred to as the Librarian, shall continue the National Film Registry established and maintained under the National Film Preservation Act of 1988, Public Law 100-446, and the National Film Preservation Act of 1992, Public Law 102-307, pursuant to the provisions of sections 179 leaders to 179W of this title, for the purpose of maintaining and preserving films that are culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. To U.S. Code Paragraph 179 Minutes, Duties of Librarian of Congress. A. Powers. 1. In general, the librarian shall, after consultation with the board established pursuant to Section 179N of this title, A. Continue the implementation of the comprehensive National Film Preservation Program for motion pictures established under the National Film Preservation Act of 1992, in conjunction with other film archivists, educators and historians, copyright owners, film industry representatives, and others involved in activities related to film preservation, taking into account the objectives of the National Film Preservation Study and the Comprehensive National Plan conducted under the National Film Preservation Act of 1992. This program shall coordinate activities to assure that efforts of archivists and copyright owners, and others in the public and private sector, are effective and complementary. 2. Generate public awareness of and support for these activities. 3. Increase accessibility of films for educational purposes. And IV. Undertake studies and investigations of film preservation activities as needed, including the efficacy of new technologies, and recommend solutions to improve these practices. B. Establish criteria and procedures under which films may be included in the National Film Registry, except that no film shall be eligible for inclusion in the National Film Registry until 10 years after such film's first publication. C. Establish procedures under which the general public may make recommendations to the board regarding the inclusion of films in the National Film Registry. And D. Determine which films satisfy the criteria established under subparagraph B and qualify for inclusion in the National Film Registry, except that the librarian shall not select more than 25 films each year for inclusion in the registry. 2. Publication of films in registry. The librarian shall publish in the Federal Register the name of each film that is selected for inclusion in the National Film Registry. 3. Seal. The librarian shall provide a seal to indicate that a film has been included in the National Film Registry and is the registry version of that film. The librarian shall establish guidelines for approval of the use of the seal in accordance with subsection B. B. Use of seal. The seal provided under subsection A.3 may only be used on film or other approved copies of the registry version of a film. Such seal may be used only after the librarian has given approval to those persons seeking to apply the seal in accordance with the guidelines under subsection A.3. In the case of copyrighted, mass-distributed, broadcast, or published works, only the copyright owner or an authorized licensee of the copyright owner may place or authorize the placement of the seal on any film or other approved copy of a registry version of a film selected for inclusion in the National Film Registry, and the librarian may place the seal on any film or other approved copy of the registry version of any film that is maintained in the National Film Registry collection in the Library of Congress. Anyone authorized to place the seal on any film or other approved copy of any registry version of a film may accompany such seal with the following language: this film was selected for inclusion in the National Film Registry by the National Film Preservation Board of the Library of Congress because of its cultural, historical, or aesthetic significance. The librarian may authorize the use of the seal by the library or by others for other limited purposes in order to promote in the National Film Registry when exhibiting, showing, or otherwise disseminating films in the registry. C. Coordination of program with other collection, preservation, and accessibility activities in carrying out the comprehensive National Film Preservation Program for motion pictures established under the National Film Preservation Act of 1992. The librarian, in consultation with the board established pursuant to Section 179N of this title, shall 1. Carry out activities to make films included in the National Film Registry more broadly accessible for research and educational purposes, and to generate public awareness in support of the registry and the Comprehensive National Film Preservation Program. 2. Review the Comprehensive National Film Preservation Plan, and amend it to the extent necessary to ensure that it addresses technological advances in the preservation and storage of, and access to film collections in multiple formats, and 3. Wherever possible, undertake expanded initiatives to ensure the preservation of the moving image heritage of the United States, including film, videotape, television, and born digital moving image formats, by supporting the work of the National Audiovisual Conservation Center of the Library of Congress, and other appropriate nonprofit archival and preservation organizations.